An Elephant Sitting Still is a art house film. It's directed by Hubo. This movie has a lot of, not controversy, but a lot of notoriety because the director killed himself after the film was completed by suicide. So Hubo was only 28 when he ended his life, and they were able to release his film at a couple of film festivals in 2018. And this movie is lauded as an amazing film, despite its running time of almost 4 hours. So this movie is about 4 different principal characters taking place over the course of 24 hours. It's based off of Hubo's first book, and it is a movie that's quietly distant, dreary. The tone and like the way the camera is shot goes for a setup similar to Gus Van Sant's Elephant, in which the camera sort of just sits behind the back of the character's head. There's a lot of those types of shots. It goes for kind of like, camera swoops around people. There's barely any static shots in this movie. This movie focuses on 4 principal characters. There's a young boy named Wei Bu. He is a young man with a very abusive father who drinks a lot. Everyone in this movie lives in poverty. They live near Manzhouli, which is like a big commercial hub for China, northern China. And Weibu, his storyline is that there's this bully picking on one of his friends. So when he fights back against the bully's older brother comes after him, and he finds himself on the run. The bully's older brother is also another character. He's dealing with his own thing, having an affair with a woman, one of his friends. And he's dealing with another personal thing as well. And the other 2 characters are an older man, a grandfather. He's Wang Jin. His family's trying to push him out and put him into a home, but not just because the family wants the apartment so they can get a better school for their daughter. So he's got to decide what he wants to do. He's being selfish for wanting to stay. Is he losing it? He's got some mental illness thing going on, and the family's not really pushing him out too hard. It's just that he's trying to deal with that, and he's picking fights with random people to just sort of feel like he's still in control. And then lastly, there's one more character, another Huang Lin. She is a female character who's doing something else she shouldn't be doing. And all these characters are interconnected, sometimes vaguely, sometimes organically. But the movie is a very interesting look at the if there's any underlying theme between all of it, is that the actions have consequences. Every character in this movie has their own little thing going on that they probably shouldn't be doing, or pretty much, and then they sort of just, that's what I really liked about the movie. It's very nuanced, and it's very, everyone in this, just because these 4 characters are the main characters of this movie, it doesn't mean that they're great people. It doesn't mean that they're good people. In fact, sometimes their characters are just wandering around and they'll get in a fight with someone for no reason, and they'll be in the wrong, but they just don't feel like relenting or being reasonable for any reason. So all 4 characters are basically going over the course of this 24-hour period, and they all find themselves drawn to Manzhouli for the mythical elephant that doesn't care about your problems. That's sort of the weird ending. And this movie does drag a little bit, though. The movie is 4 hours long, as I said, and it's probably impossible to watch this movie without pausing for a washroom break. So I don't know how people watch this at the film festivals. Maybe there is no built-in intermission in this film, like Long Day's Journey into Night. It's just one long film. I found myself, my attention sort of wavering about the 2.5 hour mark, so I stopped and had some dinner and then came back for the other hour and a half. The movie pacing does suffer between 2.5 hours to a little after 3 hours. There's just a lot of, because basically the movie starts off introducing the characters and then having them cutting back and forth. Sometimes they bump into each other. However, around the 2.5 hour mark, they just don't have any events going on, and the camera just sort of follows people here and there. Not much is happening for that half hour, so it feels a little bit droopy in that for that period. So I sort of lost my interest there. But the movie slacks up again when characters start bumping into each other again and having some consequences. And that's what I really liked about this movie. Even though the movie is long, it's very artful. It's very soulful. It's it has a unique flavor to it. The whole poverty thing, the whole Chinese thing. A lot of the actors are never overacting in this movie. All of the performances are really grounded and kind of like, just sort of like, you know, they feel like real people, you know. It almost feels like a documentary at times, because these people are just, you know, they're sort of dealt the wrong hand in life and they really can't fight it. And whenever, you know, someone says, hey, why don't you send your kid to a nicer school, or something, you know, why don't you do this instead and get better prospects? There's always something keeping them down. Whether it be society, their environment, their upbringing, their financial status, something always sort of just pushes back. And there are little things in this film that, you know, back this up, including a scene where a character is trying to get a ticket for a bus and he can't. And so this movie, it's a hard watch for sure, because the movie's subject matter is very depressing. You know, this is a movie about people who are in a bad social situation and they can't get out, and they're sort of just reeling from these tumultuous events all in one day. And the movie also is a little bit hard to... I wasn't sure which characters were the main characters, because it kept jumping back and forth. I didn't realize that the female character was one of the main ones, because she's sort of like this friend of the bullied one. And there are some really great character moments throughout. I felt myself, if I had to choose which storylines were the least exciting, I'd have to go with the older man and the bully's older brother, the gangster character. Those two were not as interesting. I got confused with the dog scene. I don't really understand what was going on with that. But essentially, this movie definitely is a solid film. It has a unique sort of thing going on. It definitely, if you're a fan of Chinese cinema, I would consider checking it out. Or if you're a fan of art house films, it does have a lot of accolades and things like that. But this movie overall has something to offer, which I really liked. It's not just a movie that's just overly long for the hell of it. It's a movie with a vision, and even though it is director Hubo's first and final film, you know, even if he didn't pass, the movie still would have be considered, you know, noteworthy of sorts, and he would have had people probably would have been waiting for him to adapt, make another film of sorts. So An Elephant Sitting Still isn't a perfect film, but it's very intriguing, and I don't think it's a classic by all means, but overall, it's a very interesting movie to get into if you're into that sort of thing. So I give An Elephant Sitting Still a 6.5 out of 10.